So we had a little blip on YouTube, so I wanted to repost this message because we got frozen right in the middle of it, and then I got kicked off, and I literally broke the internet, so it couldn't help to get back on. But it was probably because my mustache was going so thick, and I mean the internet was like, "You gotta stop! That mustache is so thick." Oh, and so that's what happened. So yeah, and I just want to share that message with you. So here it is. Now, sometimes I go down these rabbit holes of thinking, just crazy things, or I get these ideas and I like, go further and further and deeper until like, I'm like, man, how did I end up here? Like, what was going on in my head? What even started it all? And one of those things is that I've been watching these kid shows with my kids where, we learn about all these different things. And I used to love these shows, and not just as a kid, but as an adult. Like, I used to love watching the Magic School Bus as a kid, and then when I became an adult, it was on Netflix, and I would watch it. I would come home from work and watch it. And one day, my wife actually caught me watching the Magic School Bus by myself, and she was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, just learning. And now, there's the Magic School Bus revamped, and I got Oliver watching it, and so it's fantastic. It's wonderful. We learn all this new cool stuff. But one of the shows we've been watching is Storybots, and I don't know if you've ever seen Storybots, but the songs are super catchy, and the things that they have to say are super informational. And you learn all this cool stuff from the songs because everyone learns better with the song. But one of the episodes that we were watching earlier this week was all about atoms. And, there are these small little particles made up of neutrons and protons and electrons and all this stuff, and they make up everything. And it got me thinking, like, man, everything is made up of atoms. These things that I don't understand, and yet everything is made up out of them. And so I started going down this rabbit hole of just thinking stuff, and started that night, and then the next day, and the next day, and then I got to thinking about, like, all this stuff about atoms is like crazy. And like, think that there was a bomb, an atomic bomb made of like atoms just running into each other and exploding, and it was blowing my mind, like, no pun intended. But like, how does that even happen? Like, I don't even get what that means. Like, what is nuclear fusion? Like, what is actually going on? How do you even see this happen? It doesn't make sense. I mean, you have this nucleus and like protons and electrons are going around it, but how do you even see that? Like, how do they capture that? It doesn't make any sense to me. And to think, like, from these little things that we can't even see, or we don't even, I at least I don't understand how they work. From these little things, like, it was almost like these little things made an atomic bomb which caused so much destruction, which had so much potential, which had so much power. And there are just these tiny things that I don't understand. And just to give you some facts about the atomic bomb, I mean, in matters of seconds, I mean, the temperature went up millions of degrees, like just disintegrating everything. Within a 6-mile radius, buildings were flattened. Within 12 miles, glass was broken. Like, this is a crazy thing that these little atoms did, and I don't understand how this happened. They even said, like, the blast from the atomic bomb could be seen from Jupiter, which is 390 million miles away, which is something you could learn on Storybots if you watched it. And it started just to blow my mind that these things that I don't understand could have so much potential, could have so much power. And the comparison kind of, translated to how I think about God a lot of the time. That a lot of the time that God is this thing that I don't understand 100% of the time. I don't even think I understand him 80% of the time, but he's there, right? But there's also so much great power and so much great potential that I do know. I don't know how he works. I don't know how he operates 100%. I don't know exactly how to explain him 100%. I don't know why he does the things that he does 100%, but I do know that there's great potential and there's great power there. And I got thinking about this in Ephesians 1, 8 verses 18 and 19. This is what it says. It says, I pray that the eyes of your heart may be enlightened, in order that you may know the hope to which he has called you, the riches of his glorious inheritance in his holy people, and his incomparably great power for us who believe. His incomparably great power for us who believe. Paul uses these two words to describe God. He says, listen, I want you to know God, and I want you to know what he has in store for you. And know this, that he is incomparably great. That he's not just great, that his power isn't just great, and he's not just incomparable, he's incomparably great, meaning there's no comparison to it. You can't even begin to think of like, what's as good as God? What's as great? What's as powerful as God? You can't even start to begin there. And the reason I bring this up is because so often, so much of the time, we tend to think of God in human terms, and partly because we're human. We think of God in human terms, but partly because we're human. You know, we think of the beginning where God created us in his image, but then after that, we really started to think of God in our image. And we use the limitations that we're aware of to describe him. We use the limitations that we know of, like the limitations of, matter and gravity and time and all those things and language. Those are our limitations that we use, or we try to use to describe God, who is almost indescribable, And it's so funny to me because it's not like it's a bad thing, but that's just what the tools we have to use to describe an incomparably great God. And so the problem comes, though, when we put our limitations onto God. When we take the things that we struggle with, the things that, that don't make sense to us, and we say, there's no way God could handle that. There's no way God could take care of this because no one else can. I can't do it. I can't think of one person that can do it. And what ends up happening is that we think of a God who is just a little bit bigger than us. When we put those limitations on God, or when we, personify those limitations on God, we can only think of a God that is a little bit bigger than us. Obviously, like Quinn yelling in the background. That he's just a little bit bigger, he's just a little bit better, he's just a little bit stronger, a little bit wiser than us. And I think the bigger problem comes when we start thinking about God as caring or giving, as gracious. Like, if the limitation stops at us, then it's not that big. We're not reaching the full capacity that God actually is and has for us. Like, his great and incomparable power isn't just a limit. It's not just, limited to the best person that we can think of. But God is more than that. And again, oftentimes we say that God is caring, but only in comparison to the most caring person that we know. When we think of that most caring person that we know, he's just a little bit more caring than that person. And it's the same thing when it comes to loving. We think of the most loving person that we know, and God is just a little bit more loving than that. Or we think about the most gracious person we know, and God is just a little more gracious than that person. There's all these things that we put a limitation on God. And when we put a limitation of God, we've really made our God out to be small. And he's not small. And when we have a small God, we don't expect great things to happen. And I want you to really think about that. When you have a small God, do you really expect great things to happen? And I want you to ask this question to yourself. When was the last time you could say that you saw something great happen because of God? That you experienced something in your life that you're like, man, this is so great because God is great. And if you haven't had that conversation with yourself, or you can't think of those moments, maybe we take a step back and say, well, how actually big is our God? How big is he? Is he just a little bit bigger than us? Or is he incomparably great? There's nothing that I can actually compare to how great he actually is. Now, if you know me, and if you've seen my socks, like, you know that I love socks. I love collecting socks. Casey gets mad that I always ask for socks for Christmas or for my birthday, and my mom won't buy them because Casey won't buy them. But I love socks, and I love that they just look differently, the way that they feel. I just like my little thing that I have, that it's that pop of personality or whatever it might be. And I remember one day I tried on these banana socks, and I found them in my drawer. I put them on. I was like, man, these are a little bit tight today. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's a different size or what happened. But I remember wearing them the whole day. And at the end of the day, I remember taking them off and being like, man, my feet are just being choked out. Like, these are so small. And Casey was like, really? Like, what's going on? I was like, I don't know. These banana socks are killing me though. And like, it's like my feet can't breathe in these, and I'm taking them off. And he's like, what are you doing? Those are my socks. And I'm like, since when do you have banana socks? I'm the one with the socks. And it turns out like the whole day I'd been wearing Casey's socks, which would have been like 5 sizes too small. No wonder my feet were being choked out. And it's funny though, because like this idea of putting my feet into something smaller than it actually is, like oftentimes we do that with God, that we put God, this incomparable great, being, and we say he only fits in this small little box. And really when we put him in this small little box, what we're doing is we're choking him out. So no wonder when problems come, or when trials come in our lives, or when things don't line up the way that we think they should, we say, God, where are you? It's because we've been choking God out this whole time by putting him and shoving him in this little box. But we have to remember that God is an incomparably great God. And when we start to really understand his greatness, when we understand that he's not incomparable, that there's no comparison to who he is, that he's no match for our problems. Yeah, sure, our problems won't be gone. They're not going to disappear. Maybe they might not even be easier, but we won't be defeated by them. And I think that's the bigger picture that we're missing a lot of the time. That God doesn't promise to take away our problems, doesn't promise to take away our trials, but he does promise that you will not be defeated by them, because he is incomparably great. He's bigger than those problems. He can handle those problems. And if our view is too small, then how do we really expect him to overcome them? How can we rely on him to overcome those things? How can we rely on him to be loving and gracious to us when we meet people who, when we have to be loving and gracious, how are we going to be loving to them? It's because we've made our God to only be just a little bit greater than us. But the truth is, he's incomparably greater. He's more than that. So this is my challenge to you guys. This is the thing that I want you to try and really meditate on and think about and focus on, is this. Along with your devotionals, along with your Bible reading, along with your praying, let's remember to focus on the core of it all. The focus on the core of it all. Like any good fitness trainer would tell you, that it's when you focus on your core that you can start to focus on the outer stuff, on the extremities, on your biceps, on your triceps, on your quads, on all those things, because the core is what supports all those things. If your core isn't strong, well, then the rest of your body isn't really that strong, because you need your core to do the other stuff. And so at our core, it's knowing that we have an incomparably great God. And to remember that when you're doing your devotionals, when you're reading your Bibles, when you're praying, remember how big your God is. That he's not just a little bit bigger than you, but he's incomparably greater than you. That he created everything from nothing. And so as we think about this week though, I mean, it's going to be Good Friday. It's going to be Easter. And we come up to the thing that we can't even really imagine. That thing that's like, okay, I think I understand what happened, but I don't understand what happened. Because this week you have a guy, Jesus, who's going to be willing to go on a cross and die for people who hate him. Die for people who would turn their face from him. And this is the craziest thing to me. And this is what I don't completely understand about God, is how is he so loving to people who are unloving back to him, who are unwilling to love him? How does he continue to be so loving? And it's because our God is so much bigger, that he's not just a bigger us, that he's incomparable in the way that he loves, that he's so much greater in the way that he shows grace, that he's so much greater and bigger than all of us, something that we can't even understand. That how could someone love so much when nothing is given? And this is the God that we worship, that he's so much bigger, that he's so much greater. And when you realize how great and grand he is, you'll see two things. The first thing is that you'll see that you really can't do anything without him, because he's so big and he's so great and he's so grand that you are paralyzed to do anything without him. But the second thing you'll realize is that you could really do anything with him. So I hope you guys have a blessed week. Again, I'm sorry for the blip on YouTube, and I hope you guys just have a blessed week. Bye.